Hello everybody, Andy here from Glass Half Dead, the #1 kill team channel on the internet, unless you are aware of literally any other channel. Okay, today we're doing another gotcha guide, and I'm going to tell you what a gotcha guide is and what a gotcha guide isn't going to give you. Let's get straight into it. We don't want to dilly-dally. I'm doing 36 of these potentially, so let's not dwell. So, what is a gotcha? Gotchas are things that mess with you, not with them. If they buff themselves, that is not a gotcha. In learning a team's gotchas, you are also learning how to play the team. So yes, the title of this video is how to play, because that's what people are going to search when they search for these sorts of things. However, the thumbnail is gotcha guide. In this video, okay, you are going to learn the gotchas of the team, and in learning what a team can do against you and the things you need to look out for if you're actually looking to play that team, you're going to learn the things that you should be trying to do to other people. Quick note on what a gotcha is, of course, it's not a buff. If they are able to give themselves ceaseless or balanced or rending, that's not a gotcha. That's just a thing they can do. It's something that you will have to learn to be aware of, but it doesn't stop you from doing anything you need to do to enact your devious schemes. This is not a basics guide. You should understand the basics of playing kill team. I have of course done a how to play video. I've also done various other like line of sight videos, etc. If you're looking for the basics, this isn't going to be it. And not just the basics in the mechanics, but also kind of the basics in how to play kill team in general, right? You should also know your team. I can't refer to always a horde team, a normal team, an elite team into every team. I'm talking about the team and their gotchas. For you, if you're playing, for example, Deathcore, you need to know what your profile does to a Space Marine, if I'm talking about a Space Marine, or if you're playing an elite team, an Eldar, what does your team and how do they in general deal with a horde team or an elite, a Marine team? Equally, so that's your profiles. You also need to know like the basics of the enemies and how much you care about those. If you're playing Deathcore of Krieg, you need to be very aware of Blast. But if you're playing Marines, you don't care about Blast at all. You don't even have to ask the opponent, hey, do you have any Blast? You don't care. There you go. They can hit multiples of you. That's fine. And how that affects your team. What I'm saying in this guide is we're going to be looking at 5 different things. First, we're going to go over pre-game. This is going to affect your operative and your TAC-op selection. So as you rock up to the table with your opponent, you shake hands, you look them in the eye, you give them a dirty glare. And before you pick your team, here are the things you need to know to pick the operatives and the TAC-ops. Deployment. This is after you've picked. This is going to be things that define where you can move, firstly in deployment, but also going into your plan of turn 1. These will be things like seek light, ignore obscuring, because that will define where you can stand safely. Firefight is everything else. Basically, a gotcha here, we're just looking at things that define your dice maths. There you go. Finally, we have interrupts. Interrupts are things that stop your activation. These are the true things. These are the fight first, the hit twice, all these crazy things stop you from activating, possibly even stop you from tapping a point, etc, etc. If you do like what I'm doing here on this channel in general, in this gotcha guide series, in this particular video, whatever, I do have a Patreon. Firstly, a shout out to all of my patrons. You are genuinely the only reason I am still making videos. If you would like to be somebody that makes me still make videos and, you know, donate to my hydration fund, thank you very much. Check me out on Patreon. I also do things like every week I give a rant on some subject or an update of the channel. And if you don't want to do that, you want to support in another way, I do have affiliate links to Element Games and Whaling Games in the UK. If you're UK based, the way that works, by the way, is you just click on the links below. It costs you nothing extra, and I get like a 2% kickback or something tiny in that, but it all adds up. Okay, with that said, let's get straight into. Now, the Phobos basic stat line is actually, you know, normally I'd say, oh, it's a standard elite stat line because they're Marines. No. These are actually very, very different to every other elite team because they are 12 wounds instead of 14. The 7 move doesn't matter as much, that's not as impactful, but 12 wounds is way more killable. If you manage to catch these guys in melee, you're going to be doing some good stuff. 7-inch move is good for them, of course. It means they're much faster. Save 3 up means they're the same as other Marines in that regard. APL 3, also huge skew. Still an elite team, still very flexible, very fast. But 12 wounds means that if you catch them with certain teams, I'm thinking of elves specifically, very killable. A quick look at the kind of things they can bring into you. Firstly, if you have a Reaver, they are just an assault intercessor. Keep that in mind. They do have some real melee punch power, and that melee punch power comes with special shenanigans that will allow them to do funky things like hit twice, which you wouldn't expect from Angels of Death, etc., etc. So a Reaver doing that to you is very potent. But then you can also go up against Incursors and Infiltrators who have Lethal 5 or Ignore Obscuring. Let's see if we talk about those, I don't know. Right, so when it comes to deployment, indeed, we have Incursors. Incursors are one of the types of overarching rules that they can take, faction rules. And if they have an Incursor operative, that means that model just gets to ignore obscuring with their bolt rifle, with their bolt gun. It's called an Oculus bolt gun. It ignores obscuring. There you go. They can shoot you. So if you're setting up for deployment for turn 1, if you normally use obscuring, don't do it against Phobos, because they will have at least 1, most likely 2 Incursors every time they play you. They then have Voxbreaker. So this is an Infiltrator. Infiltrators, we'll talk about what their special ability is in a moment. But this guy, when he's within 8 inches of you, everybody ignores obscuring against you, which is really quite interesting. So it's not just the Incursors, it's the Voxbreaker operative as well, if they take the Voxbreaker operative. And then when he's got you with that 8-inch bubble, the Incursors, who would already have ignore obscuring, suddenly get Seek Light as well. Keeping in mind that, you still get to retain your cover save if they have Seek Light, don't worry, but they will be able to shoot you. So these things are possible. And if they have taken the Voxbreaker, potentially, this isn't so much of an issue on Vulcus, obviously, where there's not really that much light. But if you're playing on another kill zone, a custom kill zone, Octarius, whatever, the Voxbreaker, they have a real ability. If they forward deploy, so they've got that 3-inch move, and then they're moving 7, and then they're dashing again, and then an 8-inch aura, they can get Seek Light on the other side of the board. So keep that in mind. We then go to the firefight. So we mentioned Guerrilla Warfare first. This is, for 1 APL, they can change their order. This is an interesting ability. It, on the one hand, heavily nerfs the team. They can't do any double shooting. Well, they can if they don't have to move, but why have you given them a shot? In general, they're going to move, shoot, and then Guerrilla Warfare back to a conceal order, which means you then can't shoot them, right? It's possible that in turn 2, if you've had to push up to Seek Lights, that they're going to use the Voxbreaker to remove the Seek Light on the Incursors. Who knows, right? But keep in mind that they can, at the end of an activation, just say, "Oh, I'm concealed now." So you think you're playing a team that is, you're going to do your usual trade. I put my bait out, you take it. We then begin the trade war. They don't have to do it. We then go to Tactical Advantage. This is a ploy, reroll initiative once. There you go. Is that a ploy? It must be a ploy, yeah. So reroll initiative once. Being able to reroll initiative isn't necessarily a gotcha, but just be aware they can do it. It means that turn 2, if they've set themselves up for some plays, they can reroll, and they will. We go back to the Voxbreaker, same operative. He turns off rerolls within 6 inches. That's really quite good into certain teams. Perhaps this should have been, in fact, in the pre-game bit, so that you know that if you're a team that relies on rerolls and you have the ability to not take reroll heavy operatives, this might be the time. If it helps, don't worry. Voxbreaker's only 1 model and not many people are running him, but it's there. You also then have the Marksman Track Target. So this is 1 operative who's an Incursor, so he would naturally have Remove Obscuring. And he can track target, which is just the guard ability, which is a core ability that can typically only be used in Gallo Dark, but he can do it in any kill zone. yeah, it's good, I guess. Oh, but there is one advantage to it. It can be done on conceal, and then when he shoots, he flips to engage. This means that he is just a constant threat. The typical way the marksman will be used is to be put on a vantage point somewhere, and then he'll just sit there for the whole game, tracking target. There you go. So as soon as you say, I want to move out and I want to stand on that central point, cool, my marksman's there. You sure you want to do it? Keep in mind also that guard isn't at the end of an activation, it's not counteract, it's at the end of an action. That means if the enemy can't get all the way there with a single move, you've got your shot. Interrupt, we go to Omni Scrambler. As mentioned, the incursors get to remove obscuring, Reavers get to do 1 AP action for free, and Omni Scrambler is the infiltrators can do a block activate. So this means the strategic gambit step a enemy operative that is within visibility of a infiltrator. You pick an infiltrator, you say, I can see you, I've got visibility, and you can't activate. And you can't activate for the number of infiltrator operatives left on the board. This could be 4, 3 is a more normal pick, but 3 of the enemy activations until you can select that operative. So again, if you set yourself up for a really big turn to attack, but you're within visibility of an infiltrator, they're just going to stop you. Keep that in mind. We then have Stealth Assault. This is a ploy, as I mentioned at the beginning with Reavers. You charge, you hit twice. There you go. That is an almost guaranteed 10 damage, pretty much. At least 9, guaranteed 8. So be aware this can happen. We then get the Proximity Mine. This comes on the Mine Layer? Or the Saboteur? No, it's the Mine Layer. The Mine Layer, yeah. Who I believe is an infiltrator. So this is a mine. If you move within control range of this mine, you immediately take 2d3 plus 3 damage. We could be looking at 9 damage. We could be looking at as little as 5. You stop your activation. Done. Stop. Pass back to the Phobos. You are additionally, as well as the damage, -1 APL. But do note that it can hit friendlies. The only friendly it can't hit is the actual operative that lays it. And there's also no placement restrictions, so it can go right behind a door. So if the Phobos is being a little bit canny, they can straight up stop you from getting through a door, which they probably should do, to be clear. They can either stop you from getting on a point, stop you from getting through a door, etc. Right, with that said, let's take it over to the tabletop and have a quick look at some things you could do with guard. I've already said them, but it can, of course, help to see things being done in the flesh, the plastic. So this is really just me explaining to you how track target, aka guard, can work on an open board using the Phobos Marksman. Firstly, remember it's not a counteract. You are not only looking for your shot at the end of an activation, and also you don't have to only shoot the model that is just activated. If this model's here and does something, but you have a shot on this guy over here thanks to Vox Break, you can count down the number of activations and make sure that before you run out and start counteracting, this guy can take a shot on this guy. This guy's concealed and can't be shot, but taps the point. That's good information. You've been a threat to them. You've stopped them from being more aggressive. They have decided to not give you that shot. Cool. Time to take the shot on the model that you can shoot. This does, of course, flip you to engage. But the beauty of this is you don't have to do it ever. You can just enjoy the threat that you are putting onto the board. And that's actually what you should be using the marksman for. Not necessarily to be the big hitter, the big killer of your team, but to put down constant threat and make the enemy have to commit more resources to doing something than they actually need to do. And that, as we now know, is the diabolical play for Phobos.